Part 1. The Gathering Storm. The final days of Donald Trump's presidency did not fade quietly into history. They thundered with the sound of a nation divided, echoing through the marble halls of power and the cracked sidewalks of small-town America. As the sun set on January 20th, 2021, the country was not at peace. Instead, it stood at a crossroads, haunted by questions that refused to be silenced. Georgia, once a reliable red fortress, had become the eye of the storm. The state's unexpected turn to blue in the 2020 election was more than a political upset. It was a seismic shift, a crack in the old order. For Trump, Georgia was not just a battleground, it was a symbol of betrayal, a wound that would not heal. In the weeks that followed, the air was thick with accusation and suspicion. Trump's voice, amplified by millions, thundered across the nation. The election was stolen. These words were not just a claim. They were a rallying cry, a spark in a field of dry grass. The machinery of democracy, recounts, audits, court cases, ground on, but the doubt had already taken root. Then came the phone call. In a moment that would be replayed endlessly, dissected by historians and late-night hosts alike, Trump pressed Georgia's Secretary of State. "I just want to find 11,780 votes." The words hung in the air, heavy as lead. Was it desperation, calculation, or something darker, a challenge to the very soul of American democracy? The decision to prosecute a former president was not made lightly. It was a leap into the unknown, a test of the nation's commitment to the rule of law. Would justice be blind, or would it blink in the face of power? The world watched, breathless, as Georgia prepared to put not just a man, but the very idea of accountability on trial. Part 2. The allegations, lines in the sand. The charges against Trump in Georgia were not mere technicalities. They were allegations that cut to the bone of the American experiment. Did a president, entrusted with the nation's highest office, seek to bend the machinery of democracy to his will? Prosecutors painted a picture of a campaign to overturn the will of the people, pressure on officials, a blizzard of false claims, a relentless effort to rewrite reality itself. Critics saw in these actions the shadow of autocracy, a threat to the fragile trust that binds a nation together. But for millions, Trump was not a villain. He was a champion, a voice for the unheard. They saw the prosecution as a witch hunt, a political vendetta dressed in the robes of justice. If they can do this to him, they can do it to any of us, they warned, their voices rising in anger and fear. The phone call became a symbol, a Rorschach test for the nation's conscience. Was it a crime or the act of a leader fighting for his people? The answer depended on where you stood and what you believed America should be. Part 3. The Legal Battlefield. The courtroom became a crucible, a place where the nation's deepest anxieties were laid bare. Trump's lawyers invoked the First Amendment, arguing that words, even reckless ones, were not crimes. They spoke of executive privilege, of the sacred duties of the presidency. But the prosecution pressed forward, wielding the law like a scalpel. They argued that no one, not even a president, could use power to subvert the will of the people. The law is reason, free from passion, Aristotle once wrote. But in this trial, passion was everywhere. Every motion, every ruling, was a skirmish in a larger war, not just for Trump's fate, but for the meaning of justice itself. The world watched as the scales tipped back and forth, uncertain whether they would ever find balance. Part 4. The nation reacts, a house divided. Outside the courthouse, America trembled. For some, the prosecution was a long-awaited reckoning, proof that the nation could still hold its leaders to account. For others, it was a travesty, a sign that the system was rigged against those who dared to challenge it. The media became both mirror and megaphone, amplifying every twist and turn on cable news. Anchors spoke of democracy in peril. On social media, the battle lines hardened, truth and fiction colliding in a storm of hashtags and outrage. In living rooms and diners, families argued. Old friends stopped speaking. The trial was not just about Trump, it was about who we are and who we want to be. Part 5. The Trial. America on the Stand. As the trial began, the nation held its breath. The courtroom was a stage. The world, its audience witnesses, took the stand, their words carrying the weight of history. Evidence was presented, dissected, doubted. For Trump's critics, this was the moment of truth, a chance to prove that no one is above the law. For his supporters, it was a test of faith, a trial not just of a man, but of a movement. The judge's gavel echoed like a drumbeat, marking the passage of a nation through fire. Would justice be done, or would the old wounds only deepen? Part 6. Verdict and Aftermath. The Edge of the Abyss. As the jury deliberated, America waited, anxious, exhausted, divided. The verdict, whatever it would be, promised not closure, but a new chapter in the nation's long struggle with power and principle. If Trump were convicted, would it be a triumph of accountability or the spark for unrest? If acquitted, would it be vindication or proof that the powerful are untouchable? The consequences would ripple far beyond Georgia. The Republican Party, already fractured, would face a reckoning of its own. The world would watch, measuring America's promise against its reality. Part 7. The Shadow of Civil War, a warning from history. Some whispered of civil war, of violence in the streets. The specter of 1861 loomed, a reminder that democracy is not guaranteed. It must be defended, every generation, against the tides of fear and anger. But others saw hope in the very act of trial, a nation willing to confront its own darkness, to test its institutions, to ask hard questions. As Abraham Lincoln warned in his first inaugural address, a house divided against itself cannot stand. The trial was a test. Could America find unity not in agreement, but in the shared commitment to the rule of law? Epilogue. The unfinished story. Georgia prosecution of Donald Trump is more than a legal battle. It is a mirror reflecting the nation's deepest hopes and fears. It is a reminder that democracy is not a destination, but a journey, a path marked by struggle, sacrifice, and the constant need to choose between courage and comfort. As the dust settles, one truth remains. The story of America is not written by its leaders alone, but by its people, by their willingness to face the storm, to seek justice, and to believe against all odds that the experiment is worth continuing. The arc of the moral universe is long, Martin Luther King Jr. once said, but it bends toward justice. In Georgia and across the nation, that arc is being tested. The outcome is uncertain. The stakes could not be higher.